Neil reminded me of something. He put it in a way that I cannot emphasize how important this is. And I can't believe that I've forgotten it. In fact, I've reworded it in a couple of different ways, but I'm just saying it to you guys, the primos, because I think that it's nothing easier. Like, remember how we were talking before about if you're able to change your habits, if you're able to change your habits, you're focusing on your habits as opposed to just focusing on goals. Really, that is the most effective way. That doesn't excuse you from not writing down your goals so that you have the overarching trajectory, but practically, the grunt work, as in the machinery of how to get there, habits key. But, as Neil was pointing it out, he pointed it out in such a good way because it's just reminded me I can feel that like extra 1% effectiveness, and that's what I want to get from you guys, just that 1% extra effectiveness a week. That 1% this week came from this. Ready? Write it down. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's the little things. Want that again? It's the little things. It's the little things. Now he's talking about, say that he's looking at his phone for 2 hours and he feels gross. If he's able to just sit there, catch himself, looking at the phone and just be like, no, it's the little things. And he just stops right there. He stops maybe 5-15 minutes in. He saved himself 2.5 hours minimum. 2.5 hours minimum. And he doesn't feel like shit because he caught himself doing that one little action, that one teeny little action, changed the trajectory of his day. If he continued on with that trajectory, if he did that 3 hours, he's not just wasting those 3 hours. His brain is fuzzy for the rest of the day. He's low in dopamine. He is not going to be as effective. If he just sits there, is like, what the fuck am I doing? He goes out. Now, I don't suffer from the same problem because I'm at the point where I don't even manage my own social media anymore. It's pretty fucked. I know that I use social media for a living, but I think it's also so evil. But I also do think that it is a necessary evil unless you can get yourself out of the matrix. And I hope that one day you can get yourself out of the matrix and not pay attention to social media unless you're really, really controlling it. I mean, look, I do social media, but the closest example I would imagine is somebody that when television was all the rage, maybe watched it for half an hour a day and then the rest of the time worked and read. I think that that's what I have been moving more and more towards. But there are still the little things that I've been able to get myself out of. Now, one of the little things is normally, now the thing is, I think that I've become a lot more effective because I've started using this up as a writing partner as opposed to you go write that script, I go write this script. I'll make actually one just about that for generally, but I think that that's a whole thing of just like minds, more mind matter works. More minds focusing on one thing definitely does help. It definitely helps because it's this thing of me refining. Look, I'll go into it another time, but that's happening there. He does this thing is a pattern of his, and that's because he's just got the reason that I use him as a writer actually is because he's got one of those free thinking brains that is able to just sit there and kind of walks through life like it's a cartoon. Everything's just a dream to him, and so he's quite. Scattery isn't the right word, but it's just like his brain is like a leaf in the wind. It's like you say to him, like, look at that wall, and he'll sit there and stare at it for 8 hours and be like, yeah, cool. But like, if a spider goes down in front of him, oh, spiders are trippy. I'll just think about spiders for a while. Whereas my brain is like, I don't want to think about spiders. I don't want to think about walls. I just want to think about this fucking other person on social media wrong with me. I'm going to write a fucking 20,000 word essay on why they're a piece of shit. Like, that's how my brain works, right? So he balances me out, I think. And also, like, look, I'll talk about it in the other one. But that's what's happening there. But in the process of that, while he is sitting there going, oh yeah, so anyway, so like if anything remotely takes away his attention, I used to just sit there when we first started doing it, and I would just entertain his conversation for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes while I was just sitting there going, I'm going to get back to the script, come on. Yeah, that's really nice. And it's not that I don't find it unentertaining, it's just that I also just have this compulsion to constantly work. So I just stop him now, halfway through, and I've realized the way to do it as well. So that's the other part of it, which is what we were talking about in the main one, which is adaptability. If you are able to adapt what you are doing so that you can do it in a different way and get better results, do it. So the one way to do it, I suppose, and this is something that I suppose other people in my workplace would do, is just be like, shut the fuck up, pay attention to work. That doesn't really work. In fact, actually, and this was something that I learned from a parent once, when there was a screaming child next to them, and then the mum was just sitting there being like, what's the matter? Are you hungry? Why are you crying? Why are you crying? What's the matter? And she was just like, she's making her focus on the reason that she's crying. That's not what you do with kids. You do this. You go, hey, look at this. What's this? What's this over here? Oh my God. She was giving an example. How good is this? Every time her kids were throwing a tantrum in the car, she was just like, hey, a UFO just went past. And they'd be like, where's the UFO? Just stopped them immediately. Instead of going like, here, look at social media and get addicted to it at one. So I just thought of that as a way. And it's just like, because he does have a childlike mind. And so you do the same thing to him, where he's just being like, Vegemite, blah, 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 blah. So it's a Vegemite. It's entertaining. It is entertaining to me. Anyway, I love it. But I do have to just point out at that point, to just be like, hey, what is this? Sorry, we'll go back to that. But what is this happening here? You do that trick every time. And he's like, oh, yeah. And then he just goes back into it. Save yourself a whole bunch of time. But I've caught myself doing it now. So instead of just sitting there for 20 minutes, just kind of like seething it and that being the pattern, broken the pattern early, 2 minutes in, it's the little things. What have we done there? 18 minutes extra of work where he's on the clock. Yeah, all right. I'm glad that this one's going private, because I'm just talking about how to manipulate my best friend who I employ and how to exploit his labours. But shut the fuck up. He has one of the greatest jobs on earth. But, and one of the greatest lives, cunt. But anyway, yes. That's what I'm thinking about. I want you to think about it in that context. It's just, I want you to be, if you can, in fact you can, you've got nothing but time. I want you to just be thinking about that mantra for a while. It's the little things. I want you to just stop yourself. Kill the monster while it's little is another way of saying it. I just want you to think about the next time, because I think that happens a lot. Remember Louis C.K. had that joke about fat cunts, and they were just like, nobody ever buys a Cinnabon going like, oh boy, I'm getting a Cinnabon every time. It's just like some fat shit being like, oh fuck, I'm going for a Cinnabon. I think that you actually, if you are paying attention to yourself, if you're conscious of what you're doing, you kind of know when what you're doing is not good, that you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing at that time. And you know that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing at that time. But I think that it is just as simple as, this is something that my girlfriend always says as well, the way that you stop a habit is actually just by saying like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Switch, go, move, something else. It's just because whatever your brain is doing, it just wants to continue to do. So if you are able to just go, nah, stop it, move on to something else, anything else, I don't care what it is, I just want you to move on. So the really, really good one that actually helped me a lot when I was sort of addicted to social media, and I remember doing this back in the day, and this actually did eventually accumulate into a habit, was that I always had a book nearby my laptop, because whatever is nearby you, that is what you are just going to be like, and then you pick it up. So if you are, for instance, just looking at your phone and then you go, nah, I'm not looking at the phone, and then you look around and then there's a remote control, you are much more likely to pick up that remote and watch TV instead. If, however, there is a book that you were supposed to read for university or whatever it is you fuckers do, and then you have that in front of you, you pick up that book, the book is there, it is much more likely that you are going to pick up that book, because you are just reminded by cues around you in your environment. Anyway, that's my little reminder for you this week. That is the primo content. That right there, it's the little things. That is why you're one of the premium members. Love you guys. I honestly really am proud of you for being in this tier. I really, really, really am, because it took me a long time to realize, oh, okay, actually, I should be actually taking this seriously. So thank you for doing that.